So there's a half moon. I don't know if you can see it from me, but we had a lot of fun playing with this sort of sight line. You can think of people like, you know, going into the abyss. Who's the dude? Yves Klein.
Hey, any in here belong to that Blue Horizon out there, Jersey plates?
I always wanted to be an artist since I was young. So I was very eager for that sort of activity from a very young age. And thankfully I got a lot of great support with that. I didn't necessarily know what an artist was in the context of a museum until much later, but I had such a deep satisfaction from drawing that, and people would say, "Oh, you could be an artist. You seem to really enjoy this. You're fixated on this, and you're okay at it." So that word was bounced around a lot. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, so wasn't a lot of visits to the museum, but once in a while we would make a trip into Pittsburgh to see the Carnegie, which was pretty fantastic. So, but those were more for the dinosaurs. In the video, what you encounter is an abandoned storybook forest / petting zoo. So you got two for the price of one. You got this place where you can see these exotic animals in cages and sometimes feed them. And on the other side of the road was this reenactment of nursery rhymes. I am really interested in revisiting these places, and particularly if they're abandoned. So these two places were abandoned, and what you see in the video, it's shot in 16 millimeter, which is a really delicious sort of format for richness that you can't get in digital at this point in time. It's very soft too. So we got there the day, New Year's Day. It was so cold and really, really snowy white. So we had pretty good contrast for filming. And what you'll see in this film is really short takes of different aspects of this park. And I've superimposed it, and along with that, I've cut into it with images of a petting zoo and animals escaping the zoo. Because it's really a testament to how everything kind of circles around. The place was originally called Forest Park Forest Zoo. And I love the fact that now that it's abandoned, you do see intonations of the forest reemerging and creeping into the structures that were created by the human species. Now the animal species is coming back around. All of those elements had overlaps with where I grew up. Either I visited this space, which was really active as a storybook forest / petting zoo. And the storybook forest, for people who don't know, back in the 1970s, was a sort of amusement park you would visit, very homegrown. It wasn't like Disneyland. It was a DIY kind of place. And it illustrated nursery rhymes, which was really a cool idea to me in retrospect, because you would walk through these sort of sculptural installations with live actors putting on, for example, the old woman who lived in a shoe nursery rhyme. And as I dug into that idea a little bit further, I learned that the old woman's shoe, that nursery rhyme was originally coming from England and was a sort of political response by the working class to the royalty levying higher taxes on them. So it was a really interesting reaction to the taxation without representation system that was in place. And it's so interesting to me how it's then traveled across the waters and has become a new kind of manifestation of childhood play. I really adored growing up with these catalogs for Christmas with toys in them. And the idea for me of play, I think we're all born with this ability to play really joyfully as children. That's one of the great, attributes of the human species. And as an artist, my best moments, my best works come through really unbridled play. So it's simple as that. Play is integral to my practice. I think we all kind of now understand that Vietnam was really an unjust thing that happened. Personally, I was coming from it with the fact that my father volunteered and was a CBA in Vietnam. He gifted me with Polaroids of his time there. And he was very conflicted, of course, about being there. I think it was quite traumatic for him. A CBA, by the way, is part of the engineering crew. And they would build the roads, dig the latrines. And some of these Polaroids, though, had really interesting images of him and his buddies engaging in play. For example, they would take a piece of corrugated metal and transform it into a seesaw. And so you would see these two guys, big guys, in these military greens, rocking back and forth on this corrugated metal. Just this juxtaposition and how they were, in a sense, using play to kind of cut the tension that they were experiencing being there. For example, my father, I think, was very grateful that I did that. I think he felt somehow validated, and it's showing that, what he did was very difficult, but it didn't make those soldiers in and of themselves bad people. I wasn't trying to be judgmental about that. I guess I've always been so flummoxed or confused by how important these flags are. And with that importance, everyone talks about responsibility. But then, of course, the flag that represents the place, a lot of times that place is really disappointing. So I think, react to a flag in that way. Like, if you're going to disappoint us, how can we reconfigure it to think with new vistas? So that's why at points in time I've opened up the flag, thinking, okay, let's try to create a new vista from this really flat and very patterned idea of a country. Let's open it up.
Can you explain what Victory Gardens are?
Yeah, they became really important. They've existed prior to actually the Second World War. They started a little bit in the First World War, but became very important in the United States during the Second World War. And they were an interesting propaganda tool positioned by the government to the general public to get them behind the war effort. So this idea that you would plant your garden for victory, you would plant your own food in order to allocate all the other food resources to the soldiers that were being enlisted or encouraged to enlist to go overseas. So you felt like a really active and important participant in the war effort. And I kind of thought that I could plant a garden in a different way that kind of quietly critiqued this idea. This is sort of irony, in a sense. So the gardens I would recreate would be configured like a garden, but constructed out of sandbags. And sandbags were used to buttress trenches. But it was, for me, this irony between sending these guys off to war where they destroy, and then at home everyone's supposed to be growing.
This is a cape, and it was matched up with Frankenstein Beethoven, which does have, as we spoke about previously, the wish books embedded in them, as well as an image of our old friend Frankenstein, taken from a recycled Halloween costume, and of course our master genius Beethoven, misunderstood. And the mask is simply Mork, or a recycled Mork Halloween mask. Right now we're at the Den, or as I have learned is specifically Den Free, which is a really fantastic artist collective that has existed for more than a century in Copenhagen, Denmark. I am here because I was gifted an invitation through two fantastic young curators that had spaces here prior in Copenhagen. Their names are Line Ebert, Gianna Saragana, and they were invited by Laura Meredez to create a program for the space. And when I saw the building, I was also so struck by its proportions, its sort of mythological aura with a Pegasus on the roof. I think that the Pegasus is an architectural element that did help inspire the show, keep driving the show, but I also think the fact that, more importantly, the space itself, the idea of an artist collective, the idea that I was free to use pre-existing architecture from a prior exhibition, those resources were really important to me in terms of community and communicating. Also the fact that Copenhagen's a very interesting place with histories of weather witches. I think that was an element as well. So myth, for sure. And a lot of the vestments that I create are based also on ecclesiastical robes from organized religion that then I transform into something that's much more playful and much more based on sort of my own mashup of pop and cultural figures. Witchy Pooh is a really interesting character from a circa 1970s television show coming out of Britain called H.R. Pufnstuf. And she was the most fantastic witch you could see on television. She had this incredible cackle. So it was real time people playing these characters with some oversized puppets as well. She was just so weird. She resonated with me, and I loved that weirdness. She was like unabashedly herself. And there was always sort of like these really Don Quixote-esque moments in her appearances where she was befuddled, confused, made missteps. In the end, she kind of, well, no, she never really did the right thing, but I liked her frustrations. It kind of resonated with sometimes with my own. And I think it's okay to be really weird. I think it's a good thing to be weird. The weirder the better sometimes. And that was definitely Witchy Pooh. I think collaboration is integral to my practice because I can't believe that anything isn't completely finished until the viewer completes it with their accepting or they're interacting with the pieces. And I just really want to go gangbusters with that and take it full tilt. And I said, why not this time really ask the viewers to install the show for me? I love the idea that they feel as implicated as I do in it, and enjoy that experience of the making. And because when you think about it, there's all these people involved that we never recognize enough. For example, the technicians that help install the show, the curators, the directors,
the people in the cafe that keep you nourished during the exhibition. There's just so many, the accountants that help get the funding to create, the budget for the shows. So I think those things are all really integral too. So if people choose to, I would love for them to come down and help participate and complete the project. For me, the audience always completes the work. They're like the sort of punctuation point on what I do. And I really don't want to see this art existing in a vacuum. I'd like to see it out there, and I like to see it interacted with. And the audience is always present.